Tuesday evening. This is Bless Radio, and it's now 6:23, so we're a bit late tonight. It's a spiritual discussion program. I'm Saad here in Southeast London, in Bromley, and with me, as usual, is Gregory. Gregory, please do tell us, how are you, Gregory, first? How are you doing?
Well, I'm very well. I'm in Brussels, though bright, and but it's chilly.
Bright and chilly. Okay, I think I will call it. It's very bright here as well in London. I've been out only once, so it didn't look chilly at that time. So it's colder than the last few days ago, though. But yes, but it's good. It's lovely. So, dear listeners, just to remind you again, it's the spiritual discussion program. Apologies for the late start tonight. Just had to get some things ready. And as you know, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And we have a topic every week, a new topic every week. The topic for tonight is departed this life. I'll say that again. The topic for tonight is departed this life. And you can join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 07939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life, explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, and in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author of the Grail message. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, I want to remind you again, the topic for tonight for discussion is departed this life. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, the UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside UK, you can contact us on really, but you have to put the prefix, which is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And I just want to go into the background of the topic for tonight. It might sound a little bit weird, departed this life. Well, obviously, it's talking about death, as you can imagine. And, well, as we are still in the pandemic, and a lot of people are dying of this COVID-19. Of course, they're dying of other things as well. But obviously, this is the big news at the moment. And obviously, a lot of people are grieving, mourning their loss. It's affecting a lot of people. And so there's a lot of sadness and also, of course, fear for those who are alive and sort of working in, let's say, difficult and dangerous circumstances. Let's say for the NHS, especially, let's say in UK, with the frontline workers and so on. And so there's a lot of fear and sadness. And so this topic for tonight is really meant to help us to not take away that fear, and also, give a better understanding. By having a better understanding of what is departing this life. What does that mean? And so, Gregory, if I can start with the first question. What does it mean when we use the word departed this life? What does that mean?
Well, thanks for that particular question. And the phrase is departed this life. It basically means that the tool that the individual uses to experience here on earth are no more functional, and therefore that individual has left the physical body. When it's going, it's a different case altogether. All this depends on its life, what it has sown in the past, or what its aspirations are, which aspirations act as an urging for greater things in all naturalness. So departed this life only means that the physical body has been dropped. It's no more active.
Thank you for that. Let's say I want to just explore this word departed this life, because people who are in quotes who believe in life after death or have some awareness of life after death, for them this phrase is, let's say, has some idea, some meaning. And then there's others who think the earth life is the life and there's nothing more. And so for them, maybe this word departed this life doesn't really mean anything. So I want to explore that. First of all, let's say, first of all, most people say it's a belief. Yes, life after death is a belief, and and maybe these words are even just comforting words. For those who don't even believe in life after death, for them it's just, or some people are just saying some comforting words, so that person doesn't feel so bad for their death. So how can we really, let's say, know that is really real, that there is a life after death, uh, and rather than just some belief, or even it's not even true?
Well, that's a very pertinent question. To explore it further, in order to find solutions, one must look at the principles which are used, or which is used here on earth. And that principle is what has been used in the build-up of elements. By elements, one is referred to in the so-called scientific arena. Many only believe, or they say things are real when it can be shown scientifically. Scientifically means that it can be, one can use the so-called five senses that one or that man is endowed with. These so-called scientific means has grouped what is there or what already exists and is able to make use of it. So it's able to make use of the elements, is able to make use of energy. One key principle which science relies on is that of energy. By energy, we have this principle that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So the argument then goes, if energy cannot be created, it means it's already there. Even when it has changed from one form to another, that energy is already there. It transcends time. Therefore, one can easily say that energy is spirit. Now, if one follows that energy is spirit, it means the spirit has always been there. It only makes use of the physical body which has been prepared for it, or which it has contributed to in the preparation of the physical body. And therefore, when it has made use of the physical body and is unable, after a number of years, to harmonize with the physical body, then it's as if things have fallen apart. That means, on the one hand, that energy, that spirit, which has always been there, goes its way. Whereas, on the other hand, the physical body, which has been put together, falls apart and decays. But that energy, which we call spirit, still remains. It is that energy which seeks further consciousness that departs. So one can clearly say that the spirit of man, which is basically referred to as the human spirit, only came here to the earth to experience briefly and When the physical body has been dropped, it still exists, but the path it has woven for itself, that is the path it needs to follow.
Thank you for your answer there, Gregory. I mean, that opens I'm going to put in quotes, a can of worms, because there's so much in it, what you have said there. You said energy, first of all, you started with saying that energy cannot be created or destroyed. And then you said after that, that energy is spirit. And then, but then when you think of the word energy, like everything is energy, you know, you can say table is energy, my body is energy, my spirit is energy, everything's energy. And so, in a way, nothing can be destroyed or created in that sense, because it's all energy. Although we know there are different forms, each one is a different form. And yet, I also think, let's say that looking at a table, which is also energy there, it is not really living. It's a form, but it's not really living. And then there's us human beings who are, you're calling us, of course we have the body which we are very aware of, which you could also say is not really living. What is living is in what is in that body, that is activating that body. That is what is living, and that is also called energy. You're also saying that is also energy. So, I mean, it makes all logical sense that that sort of we existed already, and we are just sort of passing from one form to another form. I think that's what your death would be. You could look at it like that your form. So in that sort of logic, I can follow what you're saying. But it sort of doesn't, you could say, prove that we are going somewhere like a living being is going from let's say Earth to some other world, because that's the implication when we use the word departed this life. You're departing from this earth life to another world, to which is not earthly. So what I'm trying to point out is there's quite a lot of reflection necessary to appreciate what you have said there, and to even not only examine it, but to understand it, and even to say maybe when you say that it could be possible there's something else is possible rather than what you have put forward. So I don't want to complicate it too much, but I just feel for the listeners that can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
You can hear me. So so I'm going to make it into a question now. What is a question from that? Yeah. Okay. So I was going to say the word evidence, but maybe there's a way to, let's say, is there a way to find out who we are? Because you said we are spirit and spirit is energy. Is there a way to know what we are and to, so in quotes, verify what you're saying? That because it could be that you're just saying a theory. Like there can be many explanations for one happening, and so if you put forward your explanation, and there may be another alternative explanation as well. So can you bring a little bit more background to that, to say how do we know, yes, you are a spirit, and how do we know that really you do go somewhere else? And then is there a way sort of you can sense it or find out?
Well, thanks for that question. With regards to man, that energy which activates the physical body, that body or bundle of energy which is able to interact through energy motions, which we call emotions, that particular one is referred to as the human spirit. So to differentiate the precipitation of other elements that form the chair or wood or a piece of cloth. The human body is only activated just like you will have your mobile phone, which comes into activity only if and only if it's able to vibrate at the same frequency with an incoming wave. That is a very rough equivalent. But there is the need to differentiate different categories of energy, which transcends what you have here on earth. For when considered very carefully, life on earth is only a temporary existence or temporary stay. That which has its own free will in order to be able to interact with others, that particular entity, or to put it precisely, human spirit, that is able to weave its path through the inner motions. These inner motions or energy motions, which generally are referred to emotions, are so distinct. These emotions strongly may be referred to as the intuitive perceptions. The purpose of this discussion is to enable us to reflect. It doesn't mean that things should be accepted just like that. So it is expected that every listener will make an effort to ask himself or herself the basic questions. What am I? Who am I? What am I doing here? Am I like a piece of cloth or wood? The big question which always assails us: what is this world about? What existed before me? Is it the plants? Is it the stones? Generally, there is no argument about biological systems. We can see that the plants grow and the animals also grow. What preceded the plants? What preceded the animals? Of course, before the plants came, there were the elements which have now been classified. Before the elements precipitated that means united, there were the basic particles. Before the basic particles, that which always existed must be energy. Science itself can give testimony to this, and each person who is very discerning can examine for themselves. Therefore, it will not be wise for one to dismiss everything and say energy does not exist. No one has ever seen energy with their physical eyes. Yet, each person confirms through their emotions, through their activities, that energy exists. Yet they cannot see it. Yet they believe it. Yet they know it is real. The problem has always been the precipitation of energy, which we call matter. Because of the low vibration That is what man is able to perceive using the tools which are available to him. These tools are the tools that the physical body uses, which I refer to as the five senses. That they cannot deny. But what exchange energy, the exchange of energy, are different category. They, to some extent, can measure, but never have they seen this. So it should serve as an assignment for every listener to reflect very carefully and to differentiate the energy or the spirit to be very distinct, the human spirit. It means, therefore, when one discusses about this human spirit, there are others which one may not call human, but these particular energy bundles or souls, whatever one may care to call it, exist. What one has stated is only a beginning or a point on which man can reflect on these matters. And in going forward, differentiating the different categories.
Can you hear us? Okay.
Differentiation of the different categories will tell you that even the plants that we can attest to, even the animals that we can attest to, must have a model. Just as the human spirit has a model. The question we should ask ourselves, where does that model reside? In a step-by-step fashion, we can walk backwards, and using the walk in the light of truth, the Grail message, many may come to better and finer recognition. It is not as challenging as many think, because they are only used to experiencing that which is nearest to them.
Thank you, Gregory, for your answer. I just want to let listeners know, I think we are only broadcasting on YouTube at this moment. The blessedradio.co.uk website is not broadcasting, so hopefully the listener can tune into that. Obviously, you won't know that until you do change it, try that. So, and apologies for that, listeners. So, yeah, thank you, Gregory, for your answer. Before I continue with my next question, I just want to let listeners know, dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is departed this life. So you're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us, the UK number, it is 07939641958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Dear listeners, if you're interested to get a copy of the Grail message or want more information on the Grail message in the light of truth, Brushin, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And And just to remind you again, the topic for discussion tonight is departed this life. Gregory, I was thinking of another thing about sort of in quotes evidence of life after death. Because you've talked about science. We know there's limitations there, and then we've talked about, well, there's energy which we are familiar with, even though we don't see it. We are aware of its existence, and we know the different forms that it exists. And you've given the various forms as well: human spirit, elements, and so on. I also am aware there are people who've had near-death experiences. People who sort of almost died in the hospital. And I was wondering, Gregory, would you like to sort of share about such experiences that people had, which sort of, because at the beginning we mentioned about belief. Some people believe there's life after death. Some people don't believe there's a life after death. And you have given the example of energy that we, all of us, you could say, believe or accept. And then I thought it's good to have some like practical examples. So is there anything you can share about people who've had near-death experiences?
Of course, there are many examples, many scenarios one may consider. The problem always with, in quotes, proof, is that the evidence, the consistent evidence provided are never examined. But because they are familiar with it, they are just accepted. Here we are in our discussions. You are in Bromley, I'm here in Brussels, yet we are communicating all through an instrument using power waves, energy waves that pulsate through the surrounding or through a finer environment we may refer to as ether. These are not argued about. They are accepted. It is accepted because they have used it and they have found it to be true, even when they didn't make any attempt to prove it. Years ago, maybe 300, 400, 500 years ago, there were no phones. And had you mentioned about a phone like this without wires joining, that would have been dismissed. Why? Because they themselves, through their experiences, could not conceptualize such. Therefore, it was rejected. Here on earth, one always mentioned that the physical body is animated or is put into motion, intrinsic motion, such that many are able to experience. The question, what is it that animates the physical body? The physical body which everyone can see and can use in experiencing. That question had not been looked into by many a person. They haven't looked into it by themselves until one way or the other they are confronted with a scenario which they themselves may not have experienced before, the so-called near-death experience. It is not a death experience, it's only near death. Many there are who have had dreams, or would dreams be dismissed as non-existent because we cannot hold dreams in our hands? In the same vein, would our thinking or our thoughts will they be dismissed because we cannot see our thoughts and hold them in our hands? Yet we believe in all these things. Yet we are convinced that we are capable of thinking. We are capable of sensing. What lies behind its sensing is what one is referring to. And therefore, when someone goes to bed and is able to experience a dream, in that dream is able to traverse to different areas, it is still referred to as a dream. What is it that was able to move from one place to the other? The form which it takes, the form the dream takes, is that of a human being, having a human form, wandering from one place to the other. In the dream state, the connection between the physical body and the entity that animates the physical body is to some extent loosened. Therefore, is able to move over and have different experiences in different realms. In the so-called near-death experience, there is that slight loosening between that inner entity and the physical body. And for some, not all, these particular individuals are able to see their physical body in bed, whereas that inner envelope which activates the physical body, that inner bundle of energy which activates and resonates with the physical body, moves away. That bundle is of human form. It is that bundle which for many is referred to as the soul. So that is the scenario which is being discussed. And in these discussions, the emphasis is placed not only on the physical body, but also on the non-physical. The basis of the physical is the guide us. Nothing can come from nothing. Only something can come from something. That thing is what one is referring to here. It's not a matter of belief or disbelief. It's a matter of personal examination. If one can examine that one is able to experience dreams, if one can examine that one is able to have near-death experience for those who have gone through that scenario and are able to report many things, then they can take it further. After all, not many are able to do the so-called high-energy research in the labs. Only very few can do that. But these things, they don't argue about it. But when it then comes for the individual to do some further investigation, it is left to others, or many are too scared. The best one can say is that each personality has dreams. And in so-called near-death experience, that energy bundle, or that which one may refer to as a soul, has a loosening. That means the strong bonds between the model or the soul and the physical body are slightly loosened, just as you have in a dream. And for many, because the connection is still there, they are able to observe their physical body lying in bed while they are able to experience around them and so many other different areas. There are several books that have discussed this so-called near-death experience. But one should not take it that because there has been near-death experience, that is proof that there is life after death. The question each one should ask, what is life and what is death? These are the basic things which they have not asked themselves. They may say life is continuity here on earth, but thereafter, when the physical body dissolves or falls prostrate such that it can go back to the basic elements, it only means that which holds it together is no more present. It is that which holds it together that is referred to as the soul. That is what is being discussed. One only needs to follow the logic, and gradually such strong emotions will present themselves from time to time, and one's belief will now lead to conviction, which conviction only comes through rigorous examination and rigorous testing.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And what I want to do now, I've actually received a question from a listener saying, where does the departed go? Where does the departed one go from this earth life go? So it's not very clear to read the question, but before I want to do it, answer it in a different way, actually, Gregory. So where does the departed one go from this earth life? And before I go to that one, I just want to give a bit more context again to the listeners. Departed this life is the topic for tonight, and obviously the COVID-19 pandemic is, very current at the moment, and people who are dying of that in the hospital, especially, the loved ones are not able to be with their the loved one who's actually passed on, because currently, for safety reasons or many reasons, they can't be there. And even when the funeral happens, now it's only family who can attend, only 5, I believe, and so it's quite difficult for the family to deal with that. And so I wanted to read something actually from the Grail message. In fact, it's the title, the lecture is called Departed This Life, and just to give a sense for it. And of course I am aware at the moment, as I say, it's not like the funerals that we are having are not quite the way we've known them in the past, but the picture is still still the same. So I'm going to read a section, that's a part of this lecture from the beginning. It is so the lecture, it's in the Grail message about Brushin in the Light of Truth. Is the lecture is titled Departed This Life. Perplexed and lonely, a soul stands in the chamber of death, perplexed because the human being lying on the deathbed refused while on earth to believe in the continuity of life after death of the physical body. He had never really, he had therefore never seriously considered the matter and ridiculed all who spoke of it. Confused, he looks around He sees himself lying on his deathbed and sees people he knows standing about it weeping. Hears the words they speak and senses their grief as they lament his passing. He would like to laugh and call out that he is still alive. He does so, but is surprised to observe that they do not hear him. He calls again and again, louder and ever louder. The people do not hear it, but go on lamenting. Fear begins to arise within him, for he himself hears his own voice quite clearly, and is also distinctly aware of his own body. Again he calls out in anguish, but nobody pays any attention to him. Weeping, they gaze upon the lifeless body, which he recognizes as his own, yet suddenly regards as something strange that is no longer part of him. For he now stands beside it in a body free from all the pain that he suffered up till then. Now he lovingly calls the name of his wife, who is kneeling beside the deathbed. But her weeping does not cease, and there is no word or movement to show that she has heard him. In desperation, he walks up to her and shakes her shoulder vigorously. She does not notice it. He does not know that he is only touching and shaking the ethereal body of his wife, not the physical one, and that the woman, who like him, never gave a thought to the existence of anything beyond the physical body, therefore cannot feel his touch upon her ethereal body. An unspeakable feeling of dread makes him shudder. A feeling of being utterly forsaken makes him so weak that he sinks to the floor and loses consciousness. I'm going to just stop there. Gregory, I would like to bring you in now, and this passage that I've read from the lecture Departed This Life in the Grail message, it gives a picture, of what happens when somebody dies, and you can see clearly that the person who's died is actually alive, and he can observe his body, people around his body, weeping, and yet he seems separate from his body, but somehow able to see what's going on around his body. So, Greg, can you explain what's going on here? That he sort of feels he can see the body, but he's not a part of that body anymore. And yeah, can you explain what's going on there?
In our discussion and introduction, one mentioned the soul. One mentioned the model. And one mentioned the five senses. Experiencing on earth uses the five physical senses. At the time of death and departure, these physical organs are no more activated. They are not called into activity. However, that entity, the human soul, which activates the physical body, is still there. And the body that is using may be called the soul, because there is still, to some extent, some connection, some threads. By a connection, one is referring to as threads. The threads, or the thread between the soul and the physical body, has not yet been severed, and therefore it is still able to observe its surroundings. But before too long, the physical body falls to its component parts. Then a period of about 40 days, it's an approximation, that thread is severed. Then the soul is now able to wander along its path, which path it has woven for itself. Initially, we talked about the human thoughts. There is also the human intuitive thoughts. It is these intuitive thoughts which have been woven in accordance with the laws through which it, the human soul or the human spirit, came into existence. For when these discussions are considered, the basis of this discussion are the laws of nature through which they came into existence. These same laws apply to the human soul for that which they have woven, which they have given extra energy to and continue to nourish. That is the realm or the environment they are then forced to experience. For those who are unable to experience or perceive with their non-earthly body, like the wife or some other friends who are unable to perceive him, they just assume he's gone. But he himself can still perceive them because that thread is still available. So when he touches their ethereal body, which is known as which is non-earthly as such, they are able to respond because the earthly physical body is dense. And for that reason, he is surprised that he can wander through walls, he can see the people, or he can perceive the people he knew, and yet they cannot see him. He can walk through them, and yet they do not react or respond in any way. So all these, behavior, where he needs to go, are based on what he himself has woven in accordance to the laws of nature, or in a general sense, the laws of creation through which it, the human spirit, has come into existence.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. I've got another follow-on question, but I just want to remind the listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And the topic we are discussing tonight is Departed This Life. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us, our UK number, is 07939641958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. That's 07939641958. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, you use the word soul. I mean, we are familiar with that word soul. So what you're saying in this passage that I read out from the Grail message, the man who has passed on, his soul is there, so he's left the body, or he's still, let's say, not completely left the body, still connected, but in a loose way, as he's departing. That's what we are saying, is departing this life, the earth life. So it's like his soul is still connected somehow to the body. I just want to bring another term there, the word ghost, because people are familiar with that as well, ghost. People see ghosts or sense ghosts, let's say their presence, maybe mediumistic people, you hear about that. And so is this soul that we are talking about in this passage that we've been reading, would you consider that to be like a ghost? Another word, instead of soul, we could call it a ghost.
Well, when the personality has does not make you, is unable to make use of its physical body, that bundle, that energy bundle that we kept mentioning, will be referred to as the human soul. For the human being on the whole is the soul that makes use of the physical body. Now that the physical body has been severed, although there is still a very loose connection, it's referred to as the soul. And different words are used. Some may say the ghost. However, when these words or expressions are used, one must strive to understand it very well, implicitly, so as to make the correct use, to use it correctly. Once the soul is mentioned, or the ghost is mentioned, basically the ghost is only the soul which is a bit more dense and therefore is closer or closest to the human body on earth. But the two words, soul and ghost, will be used interchangeably.
Thank you. And so what it looks like, it's like a layer, you have the body is your outer layer, like a coat that you're wearing on the earth, and there's a number of maybe other layers as well. And when you die, you're leaving the outer layer. Would that be a correct understanding?
Well, that is an approximate picture. Normally, one should strive to understand the basis, and the basis are the laws of creation or the laws of nature. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in the lurch. You wouldn't know what to think. It will be assumed that anything can happen. Anything cannot happen. Only those things which accord to the laws of creation or the laws of nature, only those scenarios can one consider. One should not expect that wood will all of a sudden turn into gold or turn into a human soul. So there are different categories. These categories can be best understood when the laws of creation or the laws of nature are considered very carefully. Then the possibility is there to separate the categories or to link the different categories. One thing which one should know is that life or nature is ordered or very well ordered. It is not arbitrary.
Thank you for your answer there, Gregory. I've got a couple of questions coming from a listener, but I want to put them in the right context. Uh, because we are, let's say, working slowly and gradually with this explanation you're giving, and then, and there are certain beliefs out there. For example, we've talked about life after death, which you can call a belief, but we are trying in our program today, we're showing that you can actually recognize, what actually life after death is through experiencing. Now, and in these many beliefs out there, there's also belief of people going into heaven. So, or even hell. I'm now going to another direction, and that's not a question from the listener, if I'm honest with you. So that is out there, Gregory, that people believe, oh, we go into heaven, or we can go into hell. First of all, and we have said this on this show, we are here to talk about, consider things in terms of the laws of nature or laws of creation. So first of all, is there a heaven? Let me do one thing at a time rather than try to address two questions at the same time. And if it is there is a heaven. Sorry, I know it's a second question, but I just want to put a part of it. So if there's a heaven also, is it like, do you get there? How can you get there, basically? Let me say it like that. Is it like immediate? Some people say, some people think, oh yeah, you die, you are judged, and then, you either go to heaven or hell. So I know I'm complicating quite a few questions in there, but first of all, the first question is there a heaven? Let's say, is there such a thing as that?
These are pertinent questions. Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? First, one thing should be very clear within us. It is the concepts that we hold and refuse to give up or that we cherish that either form the path or block the path of our movements. Therefore, one should first consider, all these expressions, are they arbitrary? The language we speak, is it arbitrary? Does it convey anything? If it conveys a meaning, then we can paint a picture. Once one understands that, the next thing one may consider is, are there laws? Which laws seem to govern the highest and yet the smallest? If there are these laws, what are they? Then one may ask, since the human soul or the spirit or the ghost is subject to these laws of nature, which nature we ourselves cannot deny, whether we're able to see or not to see. But in first believing that there are these laws, and through vigorous examination, giving ourselves the personal convictions that these laws are, then it becomes very clear where hell can be found or heaven can be found. A place, or the concept of hell, is that of a place where there is so much confusion, so much war, so much destruction, not upbuilding, such passions that are so heavy, that are bent on destruction, no upbuilding. In all naturalness, yes, it does exist, even right here on earth, where envy and jealousy and wickedness persist. one only needs to consider that in accordance with the laws of nature through which we all came into existence, those base things like envy and jealousy and wickedness, in accordance with the laws of nature, those baseness all accumulate, come together. For those of a like nature or of homogeneous nature need to experience for themselves what it means to be wicked or what it means to be envious. Such accumulations, places of accumulations, may be referred to as hell. For each one torment the other to excess. That conception may be referred to as hell. And in due course, once the human personality has convinced itself that there is continuity of living of the non-physical, that is of the human soul, which human soul continues to harbor such wicked thoughts that then they are forced to accumulate at the same place such that they can share their experiences. In a like manner, those of noble intentions and noble minds will have to accumulate or congregate in a place in order to share their impressions or to share their upbuilding or to share their living. That is only in the immediate environment of the human soul after departure from the earthly surroundings or within the neighborhood of the earthly surrounding. But moving further, one will now have to deal with not only the world of matter, but also the world of non-matter. By non-matter, one is referring to the animistic world, or the non-animistic, which is that which lies higher, which is the spiritual. The spiritual, in order to experience here on earth, needed to take on a covering through the animistic, and when it comes to the world of matter, needed to take on coverings in the world of matter, and finally here on earth is able to experience only through the physical body. Then is able to participate in activities. But before long, when the physical body is left behind, a process which one calls death, hence one is now referring to as departed this life, the possibility then exists that through its intuition, through the activities of its intuitive perceptions, whatever knots that it has put in place, it is then attracted to such areas in order to experience and to purify itself. Such areas of accumulations, like one has stressed, is what one may refer to as hell, whereas in other areas one may refer to as heaven. But the real heaven, which is being talked about, lies above the paradise of man, which may be referred to as the spiritual realm. There is where the human spirit originated as an unconscious spirit gem. But that is a different discussion.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gregory. I know you, covered a lot there, which, people will, it will take time to really absorb what you've said there because you've covered so much there. And I want to sort of break it down a bit more for people have some sort of uh, understanding of that. So I think I'm just going to try and briefly cover what you've said. So let's say, as Jesus said, there are many mansions in my Father's kingdom, and so these different, if I can call them planes or worlds, which you have referred to as heaven, or let's call it, in this case, the heaven is, we're talking about the paradise, people also refer it to as, and also the world of the spirit, so spiritual world, which is where you have just mentioned at the end there, the spirit originates. And that is a, non-matter, is part of the non-matter. And then you mentioned also, you could say, if we come from, let's say, heaven downwards to the earth, if I can say it in this way, from the world of non-matter to the world of matter, as we journey down as a spirit being, which we started our journey in the spiritual world, as you say, a spirit germ, you refer to that as a spirit germ. So where we started our journey, we passed through this animistic world and took the, if I can use the word coat, or the layer as a body, as we travel down to this matter, world of matter. So we took that layer on, and so we have that animistic layer on us as we travel down to this earth. And then, let's say, we enter now the world of matter, which can be broken down further, but we'll keep it for simplicity, let's say, the beyond, or as in the, just to give it a little bit more clarity, the word, it's used ethereal matter, or ethereal world rather. It is a world of matter as well. Ethereal world, ethereal matter, and then you can call it, let's say, gross matter, which is more solid, that we are familiar with. So these are the different layers or world that we have traveled through to come onto this earth. And so the final world is world of matter, which is on the earth, where the earth we are now is called gross matter, just so that people have some idea. And so basically, when we die on the earth, we are going the opposite way. So we came from this heaven, and which people may not realize, that actually, oh, I'm born on the earth and then I die. Maybe there's something life after death, but basically, at least I know about the earth life. But the story is much bigger than that, because we already started the journey as a human being well before that in heaven down to this earth, and then now with the death we have the chance to go back into heaven. And as you say, Gregory, it's quite a long story to really go into it in detail, so we won't try to go much further than that. Let me just see, I have some questions from the list now. I will say again, it has a religious tone of a particular faith, but we will address it still. So the question says, does purgatory exist? And what can we learn about purgatory? So does purgatory exist? And maybe, Greg, you need to explain what does it mean, purgatory, because not everybody will understand that. Okay, actually the listener has said something. Let me read that as well. Christians believe purgatory is a place where the soul of the dead goes to purify and make further atonement for their sins before going into heaven. So first of all, question, Gregory, let me read that question again. Does purgatory exist? And then Christians believe that purgatory is a place where the soul of the dead goes to purify and make further atonement for their sins before going into heaven. So first question, Gregory, is there such a thing as purgatory?
Yes.
Okay, that's
in
good.
Accordance with the laws of creation or the laws of nature, those people who harbor similar notions, and which may turn out to be very wrong, they need, in accordance with the law of attraction of homogeneity, congregate in the same neighborhood, in order to experience themselves. And for many, through such experiencing, they will change their conceptions, they will refine themselves. Such have been sensed or experienced by many who have that fine intuition and have then mentioned it. And as soon as the human soul has now experienced that which it needs to experience and has severed itself from those base behavior, then it is free to journey on towards home.
Thank you for that. And Gregory, I had many questions from the previous answer you gave as well. And I'm trying to, so, okay, yes. So you've been pointing to that how you are in, say, in your belief or your conviction is where you head towards in your next, in the, let's say, when you pass on. So, but in the passage that I read from the Grail message, the lecture Departed This Life, there was that person who died, didn't believe in life after death, and he landed in the beyond, and he realized he's actually alive still, which obviously was a shock for him. And then, and as we know, he tried to touch his wife and tried to talk to the people near his body. They were gathering around his body, and of course he couldn't communicate with them because he's now, let's say, pretty much left his body, but he's got still a loose connection. So we understood that. But what I was wondering, and then right at the end, the last paragraph I read, he was saying because he was frustrated, nobody heard a word what he said. He could hear his own voice, nobody else could hear. He touched his wife could not recognize him or get to perceive him. And then he sort of collapsed to unconsciousness. And so my question is this from that, Gregory. What you've been saying so far is, according to, yes, how you stand, if I say your belief or your thinking, which is saying that I don't, for example, in this case, I don't believe in life after death. And so I would have expected someone who is like that to be entering a world where it's like darkness, where he cannot really, he just knows he's alive, but he really can't see anything because his own limited view of life prevents him from recognizing the world. So, and then from what you've been saying, is according to how you stand, according to how your belief is or what your thinking is when you're going to progress, let's say, towards your spiritual home, or you'll be, let's say, stranded or drawn into areas where you gather with other like people who are, let's say, I was going to use the word ignorant, but those who are like trapped because of their ignorance. So my question from this is, Gregory, is it really what you know that takes you, or what you think you know, that brings you to the place where you belong? Or is it the actual reality that there is a life after death, and you just have to be pulled, into that world in the beyond, because that's the reality, that world exists, and you have to go there. So my question is simple. It sounds complicated, but the question is, do you pull, with your views and your ideas, do you pull yourself to in the beyond where you, according to your belief, or is it actually when you enter the world beyond, it's like you're pulled into whatever the area that world happens to be when you enter it? I hope it made sense.
Well, one can only, I will try to respond to it. Life is not arbitrary. Nature, which we know is not arbitrary. There are laws which govern all activities in nature, all activities in living, all activities in existence. These laws themselves do not change, they remain the same. Therefore, when one is discussing one's belief or one's conviction, if this conditions or these beliefs are not in accordance with the laws of nature or the laws of creation through which they themselves came into existence, then it is of no avail, for progress for the human spirit only means a resonation with the laws of nature or the laws of creation. So, whether one believes that there is life after death or not is immaterial. What matters is how he, in his activities in his thoughts, in his intuitive thoughts, that is what counts. Because it is these intuitive thoughts that fashion, that have access to the neutral power that runs through creation and is able to provide a sort of the neighborhood through which it will have to traverse. So, in the case of the personality you just read about, through his own personal activities, he has woven a barren neighborhood for himself, which he had to live through. Were you to move from one place to another in London and you do not have a map, you ask yourself, how do you get from South London to North London? How do you know which one is south and which one is not? Basically, there are maps which will help you as a guide. Just as there are maps that one may use in a city to lead a personality from one place to the other, in a similar manner, there are the laws of creation that conditions the operations, that conditions the activities. But we ourselves decide what sort of environment we wish to build through our activities. And in accordance with the free will of man, many, very sadly, through their activities, build a barren environment. Hence, by their works, which means by their intuitions, by what they themselves have wished and have brought into existence, or they have built for themselves, or constructed for themselves, there we know them, or they have an idea where they themselves will go. So the key thing is for the human personality that is wandering in these regions to know the laws, for that will animate even the non-physical. Like one of the discussions we had where it is said spiritual bread refreshes. Light, which it needs, animates. And truth, which it requires for all time, will sort of revitalize its movements all over the place. So it is not arbitrary. Things are well ordered. Nature is well ordered. Creation is well ordered. The divine is well ordered. Only the human spirit ignores this ordering and turns things upside down and yet intends to pass when the time for it to depart of this earth has come.
Thank you, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I think we'll go beyond 8 p.m., Gregory, just to let you know, because we started quite a bit late today. And so, yes, and the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. If you are interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is departed this life. Departed this life. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us, our UK number is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. If you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, I want to move to another angle of, departed this life, which is people wanting to, who are left behind on the earth, the relatives, let's say, wanting to communicate with the dead. So, or even vice versa. The question has come, is it possible, Gregory, to communicate with the dead, or vice versa, the dead communicate with us? Is that possible?
Strictly speaking, it is a wrong expression. Communicates with the dead. To communicate with the dead is not possible. To communicate with that personality that has departed is possible. So one has to be not only pedantic, but has to get the expressions right. Only the person that has departed, you may, through your thoughts, through your activity, through your reflections, communicate with. But for that personality that is dead or spiritually dead, there is no communication. So in the expressions which are used, one may use them very carefully to convey a precise meaning which is not nebulous or confusing to other persons.
Thank you. I'm going to...
Yes, it is possible.
Right. I was going to come back to... So communicate with the departed. That's what I meant. So I'm actually, the listener sent that question about can we communicate with the dead, but really you're right. It's about the dead. Somebody's dead, you can never communicate. So basically the question would be, can you communicate with the departed? And vice versa.
Yes. One can communicate with the departed, and by vice versa, the departed, through strong emotions directed at certain persons, can also communicate with us. A very simple example, you hear of one's conscience. One's conscience is made up of impressions from others who have lived through such scenarios in the past whilst on earth, and therefore have the experience. And for one who is conscientious, it means that personality is able to listen to the impressions which have been sent to him in such scenarios. Those personalities that have departed the earth or do not have physical bodies, but through their activities, maybe they need to redeem themselves through some challenges which you yourself are going through, they are able to influence you by making simple suggestions how to go about a particular scenario to make sure one comes out victorious. These are the ones that form one's conscience. And these departed ones, that means those without the physical body, do exist. And such communication is possible. At the same time, one through reflections or through meditation or whatever one may care to call it, when one is focused, searching for solutions, one is able, through the attraction of homogeneity, draw many thoughts which have been floating out there, which have been put out there through others. One is able to draw such thoughts to oneself, which sometimes is referred to as inspiration. So these are the varieties, the fine categories which many a person may use.
Now, some people die with an illness and, younger than they would expect them to live, yes? I'm not talking about an accident now, an illness, and, let's say in quotes, the normal human being, let's say in UK, I'm not talking, this is top of my head, haven't checked the statistics, say lived to 8 years of age. So let's say that's your normal average human being on UK lives till 8 years of age. In one case, let's say the person dies age of 50 through an illness, and it came on suddenly, let's say. It doesn't make sense how the person suffered that, and he passes on. And there are the relative who are left behind, let's say is the brother of the person who's passed on. They had a close bond with that person who passed on, and they're now wondering, what was the cause of that? Why did my brother leave this earth? And so some of them, let's say, we've talked about communicating with the departed. You've talked about, you could sort of say, like thought and inspiration. But some people, they will not have any result with that, let's say. They say a prayer or whatever. No communication happens. And maybe they're tempted, or I use the word tempted, they go ahead to meet a medium because they have this question in their head that they want to know why this happened to my brother. And they find a medium, and with this burning question, and let's say I'm aware of some people like this that they wanted to know, and so Gregory, first question I will ask in that regard: are we meant to find out the answer to such a question, or why my brother was taken away before his time? And if so, is it okay to approach a medium, who might be able to help with that?
The first thing one should consider very carefully is the expressions you mentioned, my brother was taken away before his time. How did they arrive at that conclusion that this is before his time?
Because he didn't live his full life. That's what they expected.
Most of the time, expectations can turn out to be very wrong. For there are many, once they have fulfilled that which they need to do, they take their leave. So it will be wrong to base everything on their personal expectation. Mozart, who played such wonderful music, did not live to be 100 or 200. As soon as he has given that which he felt or which he sensed he should give, before long, he had to take his departure. So everything must be subjected to the laws of nature through which we all came into existence. Even our expectation. We cannot see energy. We cannot see the threats which lead us and has led us to the human birth on earth and to experience. We cannot even see the threats that we need to follow after our departure from earth. The only thing that we have control of is that of our free will, which free will is able to act as a guide, whether we rise or we sink. Do we need to see a medium to tell us what each one of us can sense? Sometimes it is personal ambition which makes us become so dependent on mediums, which medium will only open itself to the vibrations from the beyond. And in most occasions, if the medium is not pure enough, it is the ignoble vibrations that are around in our neighborhood that are attracted, and those of bad volition will then approach to the medium. It is not the fault of the medium, but the fault of those who cannot conquer themselves and face the challenges that they need to face here on earth.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. You gave sort of another angle to the picture, which people will not have thought about. Another thing I want to cover is, especially this again, part of the, I mean, I know death is nothing unusual. Everybody passes on. But with this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of things are being shown up. So some people who are dying with COVID-19, we know the elderly are the most of the deaths are from the elderly because they have other underlying causes and maybe, weaker immune system. And then there's other people who are not in that category, younger, fit, healthy, no sort of anything there going on with them in terms of health. And then this virus, not only the unexpected things are happening when people are sort of hit by this COVID-19 to different age groups, but healthy people, but also the way it goes, it's hurting going to the kidneys, it's really impacting a lot of areas which was not expected when this, it is a new virus, obviously, so people are going to discover things, but it's quite devastating, and it appears to be random in the way it is affecting some people, let's say unexpectedly. So, and of course, Gregory, we already know everybody is a unique person. And so my question is this, when some illness or something, when a death happens to a person, because it's a follow-on from sort of what we talked in the previous question, and it doesn't seem, and we've said everything happens, in accordance with the laws of nature, but somehow it is not it appears random with this particular COVID-19 virus when people are dying of, let's say, I'm going to use the word random causes. It doesn't appear logical, somebody's this way. So what can explain that, basically, is what I'm saying.
One thing you should know is that the so-called virus has not got its own free will. Because the virus has not got its own free will, it can only survive and continue to multiply only in the bodies of men. It only means that these personalities should take good care of themselves. And if they're not intuitive or sensible enough or ignore guidelines which have been put in place and are known to work, then they have to answer for that. But above all, there is always a gentle guidance urging you to move here or not to move here. For those who are more intuitive, they are able to weave their paths in such a way as to minimize many a catastrophe which would have struck the physical body in a deadly manner that you have in so-called COVID-19. But never forget, the virus has no free will. It is man that has free will. And if man does not know how to use the tools which have been endowed to it, which tools are that of the intellect and also the intuitive perception, and you're now faced with the challenge of something that has not got either of these, then the fault will be that of man, who in his activities either ignores the effects of these sort of viruses or is too proud to follow the simple guidance which many a researcher or many a persons have put in place. One cannot now turn around and say it is random. It is man that is random in his activities, not the virus. And it's not as if you have someone who is personified and it's called death pursuing people here and there. It is man that has not been intuitive enough or planned enough. There are here on earth countries where when this thing was had, these countries prepared very carefully so that they don't fall victims. And here on the same earth, there are countries who ignore all these warnings. One should draw your conclusions from there. Alertness in spirit, alertness in body is utmost. For these are when I say the instruments that one needs in order to survive on earth.
Thank you so much for that answer. It really brings the whole answer, just clarifies the situation very brilliantly. Thank you so much for that. Another aspect of the person departing. So death always makes us, or should make us, reflect on how we should be, and people sometimes regret, let's say, again, I give this example of let's say a person and his brother. The brother passes on. Now let's not worry about the age of it, so much of the sickness there, but basically a brother passes on, and the one who is left behind on this earth, he has some regret that he didn't, maybe there were some incidents in their life, something he said that he regrets now, and he doesn't feel he can, how he can, he couldn't say goodbye and say sorry for that, in time. And so this is like, now you reflect, that I will. So yeah, there's many questions from it really. First one is, when you recognize, let's say, the situation that the brother who's left behind on this earth, and there's things he could have are left undone, which you would like to get done. Should he pursue that somehow, in maybe prayer or something, or is there anything can be done on that? Because obviously he cannot talk face to face anymore. So can something be done about that, Gregory?
Every individual that has reached maturity has the gift of the intellect and the gift of the intuitive perception. Through the intellect, one is able to communicate and do things here on earth, gross material earth. Through the intuitive perception, one is able to reach out in accordance with the laws of nature or the laws of creation. So it is when one is able to use one's intuition again and again and again that one is able to have a finer understanding of the activities in nature. In understanding the finer activities, through such a process, one person is able to reach out to another personality. For that person called a brother, or a sister, or a father, or a son, is a personality just like him who has left the spiritual realm in order to experience here in the world of matter, and particularly here on earth. And any bond that should arise should be a bond that is upbuilding. That means that is to assist both personalities in maturing in accordance with the laws of creation. Else, such a bond which may come up is not upbuilding and will hold both parties down. So each person must examine themselves very carefully whether their longing is that of upbuilding, which they wish to connect with the brother, the sister, or whatever the person may be, or not. If such longing is what should be, then in accordance with the laws of creation, such possibilities are brought about. Such longing may not be tied to one personality, but there will be in the perfection of the order which has been placed in creation, there will be several others who have such capacities as to fill that void which might have come in, which might have been built up due to the departure of a brother or a sister or whatever. In essence, one is stressing that many a person should be more intuitive and use that intuition to reach out into the wider universe, where those who are striving for maturities are brothers or sisters.
Again, Gregory, thank you so much for giving a all-rounded or more comprehensive picture of these questions, answers to these questions, so that let's say we think differently to how we have a new way of seeing things than just purely from our personal, if I could use the word, selfish thinking. It has to be a global picture when we are really looking at the situation, because obviously we're talking about two. In this case, I was talking two brothers, so there are two people. So one person is thinking about the other, but what about the other person as well? We don't forget there are two people here. So thank you for, and then you brought it to even wider than that. So obviously making it a even more global picture. Now, again, is sort of like we talked about a little bit before, Gregory, about communication for somebody who's passed on to the people who are here on this earth. Now, I know I didn't read this in the lecture from the Grand Master Departed This Life, but if you read a little bit further, it does go in there where it talks about the person who is passed on and the people who are around the body on the earth, looking at the body, and they're talking about that person who is passed on. And the person who's passed on, he now can see things, these people who are supposed to be his friends, talking about him, let's say, in not a very positive way. These are supposed to be his friends, and they think, oh, the friends think, oh, he's passed on, he's dead, and then they start talking, they say things which is not so nice about this person. But the thing in this case is, the story that we are shown in this lecture, the part of this life, is that because the person who's passed on is still loosely connected with his body, he's still able to listen to what they're saying. And he suddenly gets a shock that, oh, these people are talking like bad things about him, which he never thought that they were like that. So, Gregory, a bit similar to the last question, when somebody's lost their brother or something. The question is really this. It looks like, Gregory, you can perceive things more strongly in the beyond than you can do on the earth. What I mean by that is you can read the people's thoughts, what actually they mean behind their words, because people say some polite words on the earth, but you are not really sure what they're thinking about you. You sort of go on those words, you believe them, unless you're proven later somehow that they're lying. You go along with it. And then, but in this story of the person passing on, he could actually see what they were saying sort of behind his back, thinking he's dead. And, it's like the true colors came out. So, Gregory, the question on this is then, is there, first of all, number one, is there a stronger perception, the ability in the beyond, than when you're on the earth?
The intuitive perception is not curtailed. Whilst here on earth, the activities of the intellect sort of suppress that of the intuitive perception. Or, to put it bluntly, many a time the human spirit is too lazy, too spiritually indolent to make itself known that it exists. Whereas with the severance from the physical body, the intuition now comes into full force. And in the scenario you just mentioned,
just tell you now,
many a thing which are done, these are preceded by thoughts. And this departing one, still in the neighborhood, can already see or perceive the thoughts in the ethereal before they now precipitate or they are altered here in the physical. And that is what counts. Being able to perceive them is considered in true nature, which many times the intellect can conceal. Right? But this time, that's not the case. And it's able to judge immediately.
Thank you for that, Gregory. We've come to the end of the show for tonight, listeners. Hope you enjoyed it. The topic we discussed tonight was Departed This Life. We covered quite a wide range of, you could say, aspects of Departed This Life. And it really was, I would call it, well, from my side, very interesting. And so thank you for being with us tonight. I hope you found that interesting as well. And, enlightening. This is what it's about. And of course, the aim and idea of all of this is to introduce you to the Grail message so that you pick it up for yourself, examine it by yourself, and not to have to take our word, what we are saying. And also what we are saying, I'll let Gregory say what we are saying, whether it should be taken like a gospel, or how it should be taken. I'll let you answer that, Gregory. So yeah, Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listener to say goodbye?
Well, the idea here is an introduction to the work in the light of Truth, the Grail message. And they're the building blocks of the structure, which we refer to as nature or as creation, can be found. One's wishes that you have the strength to examine these things for yourself and not take our words for it, but examine rigorously for yourself.
Thank you. So, dear listeners, I'm going to say sign out as well. I wish you all a great week. We'll be back next Tuesday as usual, hopefully on time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and with another topic. And again, I just encourage you to pick up the Grail message. Just to remind you, you can go to this website if you want more information, or if you want to buy the Grail message. The website is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. So thank you for being with us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show. Sorry for the late start. We should be hopefully fine next